So please welcome again, Karl Soule.
I'm not going to touch
from
that.
Adobe.
Thank you.
It was that was a double entendre, wasn't it?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I'm just not going to go there. How's everybody doing tonight? Good? Awesome. Really quickly, before we jump into like what's new in the software, and there are a couple of things I wanted to show you tonight that we kind of gloss over in the marketing literature because they're very Hollywood specific, I thought might be interesting to this crowd. How many here know what an ALE or a CDL are? Okay, I got something cool for you to see tonight you probably have not seen yet. It's really kind of hidden in the software, and it was something our team actually worked on for the Adobe Hollywood team. If you don't know already, there is an Adobe Hollywood office. There is an Adobe Hollywood team. I joined the team last year. We were a grand total of about 4 people. We're now up to about 8 people, so it is a growing group because we just see a lot of dividends by having people, some of the top-level editors in Hollywood, the features that they request, the things that they ask for in the software, and most times are things that everybody benefits from. What our team primarily does, what we call top-level engagements. So these are cases where we're working with an editor that is working on a feature film. In a lot of cases, these are Academy Award editors, winning editors that have a specific way of working, and we basically just be involved in the process to make sure that the way they want to work is the way the software works, and if it doesn't, we make changes to it. These are things that get rolled into the next public release. So as I go through software, I can always look through the Premiere and I can say, oh, that's a Deadpool feature that we added. That's a Gone Girl feature. So these are things that you guys actually benefit from. We do have a dedicated engineering team down here, and we do that specifically because Hollywood does have some different needs from what the general Premiere Pro user base has. So the main group of Premiere Pro editors is based up in San Jose, but we do have a small group of engineers down here that do Hollywood-specific feature requests, bug fixes, those types of things. It lets us kind of run fast. So that's the kind of dedication that we have to the market down here. We also do a little bit of impromptu help and support. Now, I don't want to oversell this. Please do not call my cell phone when you're having issues. But if you're in a situation where you're switching over to Premiere from another NLE, if you're just having like a specific workflow issue and it's something local and we can something you think we can resolve in maybe an hour or two, I'm one of the people that's available to kind of come to your facility and just kind of go over a few things, double check a few things. I still highly recommend opening a support ticket if you're getting crashes or something like that. I'm not, I don't have access to a lot of the databases and stuff that the full level support team does, but we are willing to help. We are here specifically to engage with this market. I spent part of this morning. There was a group over in Century City that needed some support and help. Particularly, they had a lot of questions about how Premiere handles audio. I know it's really radically different. It's really powerful. And once you kind of grok it, you kind of get it in your head, there's a lot more that you can do with it. But getting started with it, if you're coming from an FCP7 background, it's a different way of dealing with multi-channel audio and audio output. So those are the types of things that I'm more than happy to schedule time and come and try and get your problems resolved. There's a couple of misconceptions about what we do, and I just wanted to kind of clear these up because some of these came up in a couple message forums just in the last couple weeks. We don't do side builds. We do not create a version of, there's not like a Premiere Pro Pro that these guys edit from. I want to make that absolutely clear. Every Hollywood engagement that we have is using a shipping version of the software that we may add a few things to, but those things that we've added get rolled into the next release. And in a lot of cases, these are very, very minor features. We're looking at things like metadata workflows, going through a dailies workflow. I'm going to show you one that we actually added in the 11.1 release in just a minute here. This is something that was co-designed with a new member of the team that I wanted to announce. Yeah, we are not trying to, have one version of Premiere that these people edit on, and then you guys are stuck with something that's inferior. You guys are editing with the same exact version of Premiere that we're seeing on these feature films. we don't do first level tech support. You know, please, again, don't call my cell phone, please. It's on my business card. If you have my business card, you know, we really want to make sure you get a consistent level of care. And so, you know, opening a support ticket is the best way to go about that. We also don't do multi-day training. We can recommend trainers. If you need somebody, if you guys have, you know, a team of 20 editors that are going through and switching to Premiere, we'll be more than happy to help you schedule somebody like a Christine Steele. Vashi Nedamansky is another one of our top trainers that we'll bring in. And these guys have a day rate, but they can customize training specific to your workflow. And so we can help kind of facilitate that, but we don't typically go in and do like a multi-day training class. We have a new office. It's in build out right now. It's slightly delayed because there was a huge argument over how much soundproofing is enough soundproofing for the edit bay. But we're going to be based in Santa Monica between 4th and 5th Street on Santa Monica Boulevard. So this is the building. We're going to be on the 2nd floor of the building in Santa Monica. Again, you know, big commitment to this space. Somebody who has been working as a consultant with us for the last 6 to 9 months is a gentleman some of you may know, Michael Phillips. So Michael Phillips has over 20 years experience at Avid. Co-creator of Avid Film Composer and Symphony. He won an Oscar in 1999. So Michael's been working with us on a couple of different areas. One of the biggest things has to do with how lead editors and assistant editors kind of work together and share assets. I was hoping to show some of that to you tonight. I can't, unfortunately. But we do have a lot of really, really interesting things coming, and Michael's a big part of making sure that it's kind of proven, tested in the industry, what people are asking for, what you've been requesting for years. We want to make sure and make that happen. Another member of the team that was just recently added, I don't know if you guys have heard. Awesome. Chris Babatis has run a company for many years called Mettle, M-E-T-T-L-E. Mettle is going to continue as a separate independent company. Chris's life partner is actually going to be the one running that moving forward. Chris is coming to work for us as the director of immersive video content. So we're going to be focusing on 360 VR tools. Metal Skybox Studio is what is currently out there today, but Chris has also been instrumental working with Facebook with their new camera, which is something that actually does stereo 3D without having to have cameras for the left eye and the right eye. It's doing something called 6 degrees of freedom. You can look up that term, or 6DOF, or as I like to call it, 6DOF. You can look this up online. It's a very interesting way of just kind of using the mathematics involved from one camera and another camera in this larger 24 camera or 6 camera rig to infer depth. And it actually works quite well. And so Chris is going to be joining Adobe. Moving forward, at some point in the future, the Skybox tools will be integrated directly into Premiere Pro and After Effects. If you are doing 360 today, if you're a Creative Cloud member today, you can email dvaplugin@adobe.com, include your Adobe ID, your first and last name as it appears in your account. They're working as fast as they can to accommodate this, but Chris wanted to make sure that everybody who has a Creative Cloud membership, if you need the current releases for Premiere and After Effects for Skybox Studio, as a Creative Cloud member, this is now available to you. Okay? How many here are doing 360 at this point? I know we had some questions in the Stump the Gurus. Okay. Definitely a big part of our strategy moving forward. Chris is going to be mostly working out of the San Jose office. This kind of goes outside of what Adobe Hollywood does, but we're definitely going to keep connected into this and help support Chris as necessary with our endeavors down here. Okay? Now I wanted to show you a couple of new things. That's the end of my slides. This is kind of rare for me to even use PowerPoint, but I had just a bunch of information that I wanted to give to you guys, so it just kind of made a little bit of sense. The first thing that I wanted to kind of go in and cover, this is something that we added in the 11.1 release in Premiere, and this was specific for film workflows where you're creating dailies Typically, these are like lower res files, offline files. Right now, most people are baking the color into the dailies. So what was the cinematographer had on set, a lot of times people are just baking that information in. And we've had a lot of requests from people in Hollywood asking about, is there a way I can keep the CDL values that were used on set as a live CDL value in Premiere? So we actually have enabled this workflow. It's really kind of hidden. If you haven't looked for this, even if you look for it, it can be kind of hard to find. But this was something that was released in the 11.1 release, not in any of our marketing literature anywhere. So I think this is really the first time in any kind of public setting anybody's actually gone through and demoed this. The way to get to this is actually something hidden away in what we call our import batch list command. So if I have a system out there, whether I'm using Resolve for creating the daily files, whether I'm using other tools, different types of like, on-set DIT tools, in a lot of cases you can have the CDL information as metadata in the files, and you can also create what's called an ALE file. Premiere now supports ALE files. To do this, you go to Import Batch List. And the secret to getting this to work, you'll notice here I have a lovely ALE file, but it's grayed out. It's not letting me work. Come down to Options down here at the bottom and change the batch list to Avid Log Exchange. I mentioned it was hard to find. Once you do this, if this ALE file, this is basically sort of like an EDL. If you're not familiar with ALEs, it's a list of video clips. This file will contain the CDL values. And again, CDL stands for Color Decision List. So this is something that it's kind of a common way of taking color correction values and storing them in just a series of simple numbers that can be applied universally across different clips. If I do this, if I use this ALE file and import this in and go back to my project, it'll create a folder with all of the media. Now, we bring the media in offline. We kind of do that deliberately based on the client that we developed this for. This was something that Michael Phillips helped us with as part of the Hollywood group. But all I have to do is select the files that were within that ALE file, choose Link Media, link up one of those clips. There they are. I've got the lovely display only exact name matches, so it's found the one clip that I need to link. And now I can take these clips and drag them and drop them onto a new sequence. Now, if I use the global effects toggle switch, and this is something that was added recently, global effects mute, you can see that these are actually ungraded files. This has that kind of milky look of the original linear files. But when I turn this off, you can see the CDL values are being applied. So if I go into the clip, if I match frame into one of these shots and go into effect controls, inside of Premiere, there is an effect now called ASC, American Cinematographer, or American Society of Cinematographers, ASC CDL, and these are the CDL values that have been applied to these clips. So it's now possible to bring in, and the thing about this effect, and the reason why we created this instead of using Lumetri, because you could do something similar with Lumetri. Lumetri is very heavy. It's the entire speed grade color engine running. We created this specific, very lightweight effect so that if you have, tens of thousands of clips in your project that all have this CDL effect applied to it, Premiere still runs really, really efficiently. It's not something that's going to be super heavy and bog down the system. Kind of cool? Okay, awesome. You saw it here first. So that's the type of work that we do for clients with the Hollywood team. Usually it's not like super huge effects, super big things, but these are the types of things that get buried in a list if you look at the overall feature requests from Adobe Premiere for everybody in the world using it. But this is something that the community down here needed it. Our team put this together and coded this. It was tested out with one particular job and it's now part of the software for everybody to use. So that's kind of the goal of what we do. I see a question in the back there.
Can you apply other CDLs to this?
Can you apply other CDLs to this? There are, say that again?
Yeah, just other color correction.
Can you apply other color correction tools to this in addition? This particular effect is specific to CDLs, but you can use this in combination with LUTs using Lumetri. It's definitely possible to have LUTs applied as well.
If I have 6 various LUTs, I can apply that.
If you have 6 different LUTs, can you apply those immediately? There are ways of doing those types of workflows. There's some efficiency in taking scene-based LUTs and using those in an adjustment layer in the timeline would be probably the better way of doing it. But there are ways of doing that. So this is a work in progress. This is something that we, as we've been working with customers that are working more with not baking in the color into their dailies so that they have the ability to adjust them in post-production. This was kind of a first step in making that happen. So stay tuned for more. We definitely have more coming. I failed to mention, and this wasn't in my slide presentation, but we also just recently hired a new color scientist by the name of Daniel Pettigrew, who comes over to us from Apple. So moving forward with color, we're going to have, we have a really powerhouse team working on color workflows moving forward. Now, some other stuff that I wanted to quickly jump in and show you guys. When it comes to the VR workflows inside of Premiere, this is something that we are investing in, obviously, by adding Chris to the team. We're making sure that it's kind of a proportional thing based on the number of users for this, but we don't expect to see VR and 360 going away. This isn't a fad. This is something that we see it as a new emerging form of the medium. I don't think it's ever going to replace being in a big room like this and looking at a flat screen, but it's definitely a valid entertainment medium. If you haven't gotten a chance to check out something, how many here have seen the TV show Mr. Robot? That was sort of the aha moment for me. There's a 15-minute Mr. Robot episode that you can check out online. You can use your phone and a little $20 pair of the VR headsets that you can buy at like Best Buy. It tells a story. It uses the camera motion in an interesting way. It really, really kind of immerses you in the environment, lets you look around, but really focus on what the audience is doing. So I really feel this is, it's got a lot of legs, and we're really just getting started. And the technological requirements of 360 and VR, we're really just starting to scratch the surface. This is a timeline that is a 4K by 4K timeline. It needs to be square to hold left eye and right eye information. People in the industry are saying that 8K by 8K is probably what we're going to be delivering in 5 years. Let that sink in for a second. So this is one of those areas that is just going to continue to push the envelope of what kind of hardware you need to be able to work with this. So it's definitely something that we're going to continue to invest in. If you haven't seen what Metal does, I gave you guys the email address to get the Skybox plugins for free. I don't have time to show you all the stuff in After Effects, but suffice it to say, it takes an image that looks like this and kind of flattens it out so that you can do traditional tracking, compositing, rig removal, things like that. In Premiere, the Skybox Studio provides a whole laundry list of effects that are incredibly useful for working with 360 imagery. Just to zoom into some of these, normally if you apply something like a blur or a glow to a 360 video, it really accentuates the seams. You end up seeing weird artifacts top and bottom where the video wraps and connects together. It starts repeating edge pixels, and so immediately that's something that you can see. Chris and his team created this whole series of different effects. One that I use on a regular basis is Sharpen, because my 360 camera kind of sucks. This was the cheapest camera, easiest way to kind of entry-level camera. It's called the Ricoh Theta. Nice stills with this. I've taken some really nice stills with this, but video is a whopping 1920 by 1080, which, like I said, 360, that's not enough pixels. So sharpening the video does help somewhat, so the Skybox Sharpen filter really, really helps with that. one of the ones that I use all the time, using the new text tools inside of Premiere. If you're working in 360, well, the mapping of the text doesn't necessarily work right. Here I just created just a little shout out for it being the birthday, 17 years? 17 years of LACPUG. But I want to actually map it into the 360 scene here. If I turn on my 360 viewer, that doesn't look good. So using something like the Skybox Project 2D effect actually puts this proportional in the shot, lets me see it. I can scale it up and down in size. I can change, if I'm looking at this, bear with me 1 second here, I'm going to turn on a setting in our viewer here for stereoscopic. We'll go ahead and give this kind of that anaglyph. If I had red and blue glasses, you could actually see the stereo convergence at this point. And this actually does have a stereo push or a stereo effect that you can work with your titles and graphics in 360. So these are the types of things that Skybox adds to Premiere. Some really beautiful transitional effects. I think I've got one here with kind of a glow that actually, if you use the transitional effects from Metal, I don't think they guarantee that you're not going to make your customers sick, but if you try and do like page peels or other things, you are guaranteed to make your customers kind of ill in moving from scene to scene. There's some really nice transitional effects in here. Something called a Mobius zoom, which kind of creates this sphere that kind of wraps around you. So it's definitely, if you're doing any type of 360 production, checking out Skybox Studio, highly recommended. I've got about 10 to 15 minutes. I wanted to ask you guys a question. What would you rather see, motion graphics or audio? That was a mistake. That was a real mistake. I heard audio first. I'm going to do audio first, and we'll see if I have time for the motion graphics side. We did change out the motion graphics engine in Premiere now. It's a brand new type tool, borrowing from After Effects and Photoshop. So, we're trying to kind of unify the tools. Once upon a time, I think the Adobe suite had something like 16 different color pickers across all the different applications, and frankly, a color picker pretty much does the same thing from app to app. So a lot of under-the-hood stuff as far as unifying the code, and you're seeing some big benefits in graphics and in audio. So I wanted to showcase both of these if I have time. I'm going to start with the audio one. If you haven't seen it yet, we have a new panel inside of Premiere called the Essential Sound panel. And the idea of this is kind of a start into role-based audio in Premiere. You now have the ability to tell Premiere whether your audio is dialogue, music, sound effects, or ambiance. And the Essential Sound panel gives you a series of controls, simple, easy-to-use controls for making quick adjustments to your audio. The best thing about this, though, is what's under the hood are all of the more complex audio effects that came over from Adobe Audition are now built into Premiere as well, and you can access them on a clip-by-clip basis if you need to do fine-tuning and tweaking. But just to give you an example of this, I'm just going to play back a section of this sequence. Nothing is mixed at this point. Just take a listen to the audio mix. It's pretty... you just listen to the dialogue at this point.
Hi, yeah, hi. I'd like to change.
Okay.
Great. I'd like an elderberry.
Oh, actually, we don't have that.
Buried in the mix, this is just kind of the starting place. One guy is kind of loud, one guy, or the bartenders, different audio levels between the different speakers here. I'm just going to quickly select all of these clips that I know are dialogue and click on dialogue, and this gives me a series of controls for fixing common problems dealing with dialogue. If I had chosen music, I would have different controls. If I chose ambiance, I'd have different controls. So there's some intelligence and machine learning built into the panel. If I click on dialogue, or if I click on loudness, we now have an auto match function which actually uses, I believe it's LUFS, as a perceived loudness indicator to match the volume of the dialogue in the clip. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. It's gone through and done this. Auto matched -23 LUFS. Let's just listen back to that again.
Hi, yeah, hi. I'd like to get a drink, please.
Okay.
Great. I'd like an elderberry liqueur.
Oh, actually, we don't have that.
Who orders elderberry liqueur in a... Anyway. Yeah.
How does this translate if you're going to a third-party audio application, like Pro Tools?
How does this translate if you're going to a third-party audio program like Pro Tools? When you go out AAF, you can send in an AAF file a wet mix and a dry mix. That's about it.
So this doesn't come as volume metadata or anything like that?
Doesn't, no. Typically, with AAF as the transmission medium between Premiere and Pro Tools, there's some stuff that can be brought in if you keyframe, but beyond that, this won't translate across. In addition to this, maybe I want to add a dynamics processor. I can go ahead and turn that on. Just by turning it on, it's listened again to the audio, and it's done an analysis to figure out the correct compressors and expanders on various frequencies to do the right thing for the audio. Now, I'll start with this turned all the way down and just kind of like move this back and forth. So I'm going to take it beyond the limits of good taste, really compress the heck out of it, give it that like radio announcer type of sound, but just so you can hear what this slider is actually doing.
Hi, yeah, hi. I'd like to get a drink, please.
Okay.
Great. I'd like an elderberry liqueur.
So as I move it up, it's actually getting that point where you start to get a little bit of pumping of the noise shelf in the background. So you can definitely kind of go overboard. I'd probably want something around like maybe a 2 or a 3 on this. Moving further down in the list, there's an EQ built into this. There's presets. I call this the David Fincher preset because, I don't know, locked in the trunk. But you know, the one everybody uses on a regular basis, you know, if you need a phone futz, there's one right here. You just turn that on and you've got you know, a phone futz built into this. Now, going back to this dynamics processor, I'll turn off the EQ for a second and turn back on the dynamics processor. If I select an individual clip here, what this is actually doing is it's applying something called the dynamics processing filter. And if I click the edit button, there's the interface and the curve that the Essential Sound panel has built. So it's created these keyframes along this curve, and you can see what this is actually doing here. So you have the power under the hood. This isn't just a dumbed down thing. It's designed to get you in the ballpark. In a lot of cases, you can set it and leave it where it was, but if you need that fine-tuned tweaking on a clip-by-clip basis, the power of the effects themselves are actually available under the hood. And we've changed the user interface on a lot of these effects. They actually have kind of a VU effect going on while you play this back.
Oh, you know, I've only been working here for 5 years, so let me just check on that for you.
Thank you.
So, you know, you can easily pick up and, you know, start tweaking these values further if you needed to. I'll show you one other thing in here before we move over to graphics. For music, if I select my music track and click on music, there is the same loudness auto match function that we can do, but there's also a duration adjuster. And this is using some technology that we had in Adobe Audition called Remix. Anybody here familiar with what we did with Remix? A couple hands going up. I'm going to actually show you this on Audition. And I've tried to find a good stock piece of music that I can run this on that I have the rights to. That the challenge I have with that is the demos that I've done with it, people look at this and they think, this is, the file's been pre-processed in some way to make it easier. I want you guys to really understand what Remix is doing here, so I'm going to use a piece of licensed music for educational purposes only. Those of you online, we may have to cut to black. You might not get this demo. But I just wanted to do this because I wanted to pick a song that you guys all know. You know what the next lyric in the song is going to be, so you can really hear what's going on. How many here know what this song is? So I'm going to turn on, I've got this in a multi-channel project. I'm just going to use the Essential Sound panel, which is also in Adobe Audition, by the way. I'm going to turn on music and turn on duration. Now, Audition, because it's got a little bit more power to it, it does have this other option of stretching the audio. That'll pitch it up or down. You know, if you're trying to deal with sound effects or something like that, maybe you do want to play with pitch on the audio. The remix function is what Premiere does by default. So I'm going to go ahead and set this for remix. It's doing a quick analysis of this 4-minute and 10-second song. Now that this is done, I have the ability to grab, there's a little tiny handle up here in the top for remixing. And if I need a 2.5-minute version of this song, and it's done. What this is actually doing is listening to beats, it's listening to dialogue, it's listening to the overall ambience of the song. It's trying to find places where parts of the song sound similar, and it will cut them together for me automatically. So I'm just going to go to this line here where it's automatically decided that there needed to be an edit at this point. Let's try 240. Let's see what it does there. Oh, here's a different edit point. So every time you stretch it, it's going to re-listen to the song. It always is trying to keep the basic structure of the song the same. Slow bits at the beginning, builds to a faster crescendo later. Let's listen to this. Did you hear it? He says they took a midnight train going anywhere a couple of times in the song. It found 2 versions of it, spliced out what was in between, did all the work for us. So, so that's remix. So that's what if I push it down to 20 seconds? Well, let's try, I'm not going to go that far, but let's try 40. I'm going to check this box over here. We do have an option to say favor shorter segments. So there, it's done a whole series of smaller edits. And that's the reason we're listening to Journey tonight, is you. So if I do this with typical stock music that is designed to be somewhat repetitive, you can't tell what it's even doing. But here, obviously, you can hear it's taking lyrics, matching them together in a way that actually sounds pretty natural to create a 40-second version of the song. So, remix, use it, love it. Cool. Going back to graphics really quickly, 5-minute warning? Okay, I'm going to cram this into 5 minutes. We have a new type tool. Really quickly, if you love the old type tool in Premiere, you still want to create the older style titles, new legacy title is your friend. But we are gently retiring the older titler in favor of a new type tool that is compatible with After Effects. It's using a lot of the same functionality from Photoshop for type, so we're trying to unify the experience of how you deal with type. If I want to create type in Premiere, basically all I have to do is select the type tool and type right on the program monitor. The Essential Graphics panel, kind of the companion to the Essential Sound panel, gives me all of the type controls that you would typically expect to see for working with type and graphics. You can create master styles, you can create text, you can create shape layers. So we have an ellipse tool now, a rectangle tool. You can use the pen tool now right on the program monitor to create all kinds of crazy, I don't know why. You can tell the After Effects team kind of designed this because that's the default color. Let's just change it to something a little bit different here. and I can reorder the order of the graphics here. I'm going super fast. Don't judge my title skills by what you're seeing here. But you can see you can design titles in this. If you animate your titles, and this has kind of a nice little blur effect add-on, you still do your keyframing in the effect controls the way you would normally. You now have the ability to right-click and choose to save this out as a motion graphic template. When you save it to a motion graphic template, you can store it in the Essential Graphics panel itself, and Premiere now ships with a whole series of new lower third graphics that you can use as these are templates that we now include, we now ship with. As far as that, there's also a whole thing you can do with these with libraries. If you're not using libraries, you're going to have to check out libraries another time. I don't have time to show it to you, but libraries give you the ability to work with somebody else doing your motion graphics. They can save it to a library in Burbank, and it will sync with your system in Topanga, wherever. And you'll have access to that motion graphic. We actually had a situation a couple weeks ago. Van, my boss, was actually in Denver working with a client, and he called me on the phone. He said, "Can you work up a quick motion graphic template and put it in a library for me?" And I was able to do that for him, and he pretty much had it within about 20 minutes or so. He was on a slow internet connection. These motion graphic templates can also be created over in After Effects, and when you get into work in After Effects, motion graphic templates in After Effects can be quite a bit more complicated. There's a lot more that you can do with them. It's up to the After Effects artist to decide what controls the editor has over in Premiere. So this particular motion graphic template, I've got a slider here with 11 different background images that I can pick and choose from. I can change the color on that background, which is an adjustment layer in the After Effects comp. And I can even change out the graphic style. There's actually 6 different nested styles within this After Effects project. So I can just quickly change this to a different style. And it's all updatable, editable. Cool. I was going to take the time to show you how to do this in After Effects. I'm evidently running really late on time, but just know inside of After Effects, I'll very quickly show you that same example here. I can now use the Essential Graphics panel in After Effects. If you're an After Effects user, you've ever gotten a comp from somebody else, gotten an After Effects project, and they say, "Oh yeah, just change it however you want. It's really easy to see what's going on." And you're digging through 14 nested comps looking for the control. You can use this Essential Graphics panel in After Effects. Simply take whatever control that you want to work with, and drag it and drop it up and add it to the Essential Graphics panel. So if you have a particular color, a text field, anything, you can build out this panel. You can add comments, controls, and when you click this button down here at the bottom, you can export this out as a motion graphic template for Premiere. It's a baked file. It can have audio. It can have video embedded inside of it. And when you bring that into Premiere, again, it's a baked file. What I mean by that is a .mogrt file is not openable in After Effects again. You're kind of locking it in so that you, as the motion graphic artist, can control what the editor can do with that particular file. So that's the way it's done as designed. If you have to give the client everything, they want to have the project file, you can still give them the After Effects project file if you so desire. Okay? All right, I think I am out of time. Thank you, guys.